Alrighty. And Dr. Slade, it's nice to see you or be connected. I know we're connected on LinkedIn, so it's nice to be in the same space at the same time. All right. So I just want to welcome everyone in, and then for purposes of the recording, I'm Dr. LaTanya White. I am here on behalf of the Morehouse Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center, or MIEC as we call it. Morehouse is in its third year of a partnership with Georgia Tech University, really amplifying the entrepreneurial endeavors of HBCUs and minority serving institutions across the country. So, one of the um, priorities for this third year of the partnership is to really create space and opportunity for Black academic research, entrepreneurial research to be amplified. And it makes there is nobody better to talk to us about Black scholarship, and especially publishing academic excellence through a Black lens than Dr. Ayo Sekai, who is the CEO and founder of Universal Right Publication. So I'll be dropping, I know most of you are already connected to her. For Dr. Muhammad, I'm so happy that he was able to join us. So we can do a quick round of introductions since we have a smaller group, if that's okay. I think some of us are in maybe in transition, but if Dr. Anderson, if you be able to kick us off with introductions, just tell us maybe where you are in the world and what kind of work do you do?
I'm Ronaldo Anderson. I'm an associate professor of African American Studies at Temple University in Philadelphia. Also, the co-founder of the Black Speculative Arts Movement, LLC, and also part of the editorial team at Universal Right Press, and also recently appointed as the deputy editor for the Journal of Black Studies. And so yeah, this title, I decided to log in because it's kind of what I do in a lot of my activism. Plus, I'm a graduate of Jackson State University, go SWAC. And so, I wanted to make sure y'all Morehouse people are keeping our standards up. So definitely I was gonna make time to come and listen to this.
Thank you so much for that. um, and I'm kind of cracking up, go swag. So I'm a product of FAMU, and we have a couple other rattlers on the call. We moved from the MEAC.
We're gonna see you in September again, and we're gonna have that tissue ready again. It ain't
Don't
gonna
do that.
stop. It ain't gonna stop.
Noted, and we have it on the recording, so we can always come back to this. Dr. Muhammad, are you able to introduce yourself? Because I think you're in transition, but we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I definitely got to speak up after that and say once again, go Rattlers, damn you all day. But no, I'm very very excited to be here. I am moving. I usually like to have my camera on for this, but I'm moving around today. It's actually my birthday today, so I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff. But yeah, I'm Dr. Malcolm Muhammad. I got my PhD in entrepreneurship at the University of Louisville back in just last December. Actually, I just finished, and I recently relocated to Atlanta to take a job at the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs, and I'm vice president for engagement and outcomes. And so it's I really see it as a direct extension of my dissertation work and my research around building communities for Black entrepreneurs, and I get to really just put that in practice every day at the Russell Center. So they're giving me kind of the leeway to put my framework in play and to continue to build my research around just a framework for growing Black businesses. And so that's my work in a nutshell, very heavily rooted in the entrepreneurial ecosystem literature.
I love that, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. Sybil, are you able to unmute and maybe tell us a little bit about where you are in the world, what you do?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Sybil Slade, and I'm here in Hotlanta. And I have been I have been in the, I would say the entrepreneurship, I'm going to use, I'm gonna steal the word from the gentleman before, ecosystem since, oh my God, over 30 years now. So starting from the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta and community economic development, working with small businesses and entrepreneurship and making sure that, there's access to capital, products and services. And then I flipped the switch in 2015 and came over to the wealth management side of the world so that I can help small businesses ensure that they are creating businesses that will sustain them through retirement and hopefully transfer the wealth, right? Whether it's to their family or if they're selling it to an employee who's there. So I am a partner of Morehouse, work with Dr. Bussey, have done some workshops there. I am the vice chair of Access to Capital for Entrepreneurs, which is a CDFI here in Atlanta, but started in Cleveland, Georgia, and we have now recently expanded to South Georgia. I am also a partner to Albany Community Together. Again, another CDFI that is in the Black belt of our state, really focused a lot on entrepreneurship. So again, I'll stop there. I've been in this ecosystem for as long as I've been a professional. So my heart and passion lies there. And thank you, Dr. White, for saying, Dr. Sybil, maybe I'll have a doctorate in the future, but right now I'm not gonna steal from you all's accolades, but was intrigued by the title, knew I needed to be here, and so here I am.
Yay. Thank you so much. Yes, we're probably speaking it into existence, and you are already connected to a community of academic entrepreneurs that can help you on that journey. So we're happy to do it. Is it Kina, Kina? Help me make sure I'm pronouncing your name properly. Are you able to introduce yourself? Just tell us maybe where you are in the world, what you do.
Hello, my name is Kina. My children are running around like crazy, but I'm still tuned in, so no camera today. I am a cosmetologist. I specialize in African American hair. I educate women on growing their hair, loving their hair, and not running away from their hair. I've been doing this since 2014. It's been a gift of mine since I was born. I cut off a few ponytails in elementary school. So I knew I was supposed to be in the hair field. So I just try to reach out to women and let them know it's okay to wear protective styles. However, you want to embrace your curls and get used to them and not look at them as a downfall in your life, but something great and awesome. So yeah, that's me.
Yay, I love that. And certainly biased. I see Dr. Sekai said you're her loctician. I actually conducted my dissertation research on Black women entrepreneurs in the hair and beauty industry. So all the connections, I love it. I love it.
Awesome. Likewise, nice to meet you all.
You as well. Dr. Sekou, I see you're on here twice. So are you able to?
Yes, there's a small emergency. I had to run downstairs from my office. But yes, I'll be really, really brief. So I'm on my phone because I had to move. Yes, Dr. Ronald Sekou, I'm here at Clark Atlanta University. So Atlanta's in the house pretty deep. And I walked in on a conversation. I'm not sure what it was about, but I'm a rattler as well. So we're rolling deep just in case you need backup, Dr. White. But no, I'm here. I work at the Associate Director for the Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurial Development here at CAU. Super excited to be here and connect, of course, all the time with other people in the industry, in this space, and anybody that supports innovation and entrepreneurship. So glad to be here.
Yay, thank you. And finally, Rashawn Gardner, am I pronouncing your name correctly? If you're able to unmute and maybe introduce yourself to us. Going once. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about that. I'm Rashawn Gardner, and I am a Howard guy, inspiring entrepreneur, and I ran across this. I I'm actually interested in developing a company to solicit HBCU graduates to direct hires to the federal government. That's what I'm looking at now, and I'm just here to listen to everyone and learn as much as I can. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. So we definitely thank you for that note, Dr. Sekai. We definitely have a lot of cross intersectionality between our interests and our backgrounds. And I think Dr. Sekai is going to be the perfect constellation or North Star to bring it all together. So at this point, Dr. Sekai, introduce yourself to us, and then we'll get into some of those moderated questions that we were talking about.
Oh my goodness, I cannot say how excited I am to be here. Thank you so much, Dr. LaTanya White, for this opportunity. I am incredibly grateful. You and I met serendipitously like about a year ago, and our connection and our connectivity and the amount of things that we've done together and accomplished together in that short time has been insurmountable. And I cannot be more grateful and excited about all the things we're going to do together in the future. And I hope to remain connected and keep working with all of you as well. And as all of you have introduced yourselves, thank you so much. You're in this amazing entrepreneurial space. And it's so interesting because it's not one of those things that I ever even really thought that I was thinking about or even heading into. So I'm going to get into that a little bit more later on, but I want to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Ayo Sekai, and I am the CEO and founder of Universal Right Publications. We are currently in our 19th year. So next year will be 20 years since Universal Right Publications have been around. I am a PhD graduate from Howard University. So I'm a Black political scientist focused on international relations and Black politics. I'm also an immigrant from Jamaica, so that made it really important to me to focus on international relations and, of course, Black politics. Like Howard University is the only place you can go and get a PhD in Black politics. So that's what I am. So why not, right? And of course, my dissertation research is on linguistic imperialism, the rhetoric of domination through and against the African American lens. So I focus on how language, it turns into policy, it turns into behaviors and actions that continue to perpetuate the marginalization of Black people. So thank you again. So we're here to talk about, entrepreneurship and publishing. And I have a lot to say about that. And I'm so impressed by all of you, Sybil and Dr. Katoti, pronounce your name again?
Setut.
Setut?
Yep.
Oh, that is so sexy. Anyway, that is a nice name. Dr. Setut, I love the space that you have all, entered in. I mean, even Shakina, who is one of my lacticians, I mean, like just the fact that she knew authentically what she wanted to do and who she wanted to be. I see Dr. Chaz Gibson. I've also joined the call, a longtime friend and colleague, someone I call my brother. We're very, very close family members together. So I'm really glad that he's here as well. So I do have a lot to share, and I'm not sure how you wanted to go about this, Dr. White. Did you want to go into the moderation questions, or do you want me to just kind of free talk?
Yeah, well, if you can give us you shared a little bit that UWP is preparing for a 20-year celebration. Talk to us about how you got to this place. What was the starting point for you?
Oh my goodness. So one of the things that I have always been reluctant to share, and I'm going to share here, it's a smaller space, and I know it's recorded. But I met a professor at AERA last weekend, and his name is Dr. Luke Woods, and he was sharing his story as he talked about, the marginalization of foster kids and the horrific treatment of suspension that's happening to Black kids across the country. And one part of his story was that he was a foster kid, and he lead with his story to talk about his why. And one of the things that he shared with me was like, you really need to talk about your why. And even though I won't get into it too in depth here, I am a survivor of so much victimization and horrific violences that you could possibly imagine. I was, of course, abandonment. I was in an orphanage by the time I was 10 years old and homeless by the time I was 17. And when I came to this country at 14 years old, one of the first things that I learned going to high school was that, you have to own something, right? You have to own something. That's the American dream, to own something. And so I have always loved reading. I've always loved writing. I'm a poet. I'm a spoken word artist. I believe in the power of words and language. And I thought, what would I do? I've been writing poetry all my life. Literally, it's one of the reasons that I actually attribute to saving my life, because poetry, I never used to talk. I had a very bad list, and I would be very introverted, even though I was very popular in high school. I was voted Uzu. I was captain of the basketball team, president of student government, academic Olympics, mock trial, you name it, I was it. But I would not speak to anyone outside of those spaces, and partially because of the traumas that I was experiencing at home that I didn't want to talk about. And so my coaches and my teachers were my greatest mentors and activists and angels in my life. By the time I got to college, I met a professor who told me, you don't have to get rid of your list. You just have to learn to control it. And of course, by then all the boys thought my the way I talk was cute. So I'm like, okay, I'm key to keeping my list. And that was right around the time that I realized that, who I am authentically has always been about words and language, hence my dissertation research, hence everything that I'm doing and focus into. When I went away to college, even going into my PhD program, when people asked me, why are you getting a PhD? And my thing was, okay, being Jamaican, of course, I'm super competitive. Number two is it's the highest degree on the land, so why not? And number three is, it will open doors, right? It's not about really what you're going to do with a degree, but understanding that this is a capitalistic nation and that the doors that it opens are much more far reaching than we could ever imagine in so many ways. And I will give you a very, very poignant example of that with publishing. And I'm going to go back to how I got started. When I was at AERA, and I've gone to about 10 conferences every year over the past 2 years. And when I was at AERA last year, I realized there's always these big vendors, right? Journals, book publishers, and they're usually all white that's dominating this space, which would be also a big part of our conversation. And of course, marginalizing Black scholars as well, which is why we are unable to develop and evolve. And of course, that's more conversation we will go into. However, as I was there and I realized all the big white publishers are there, the Rutledge, the Sages, the Ron and Littlefield, I mean, you name it, the academic presses, they were all there. There is only one thing that I had, besides being Black, which is huge, that I had that they didn't have, is that I'm also a doctor. They could not access the spaces that I could access, not just because I'm Black, which is huge within itself, but I understand the rigor of going through a doctoral program. I understand the nuances of needing to be published, the whole publish or perish concept. I understand the need and the marginalization and the perpetuation of hatred and discrimination that Black spaces and Black bodies deal with every single day. So while I can go to the parties and the networking parties and everyone will go, oh my God, Ayo, you've got to meet this person. They've got a great book, or you've got to talk to this person, or this person got to connect with you. While I could experience that off the clock, they were stuck in that 9-to-5 block of boots. So just a huge example of how my entrepreneurship was able to access spaces that no one else could access just by virtue of me being a Black woman publisher. That's a huge competitor for them, in so many ways. So that's in one example. But going back to how I got started, so as I was getting into my young adulthood, I realized that I needed to own something because I had nothing. I was poor. I lived in food deserts. I know what it's like to not have. But I wanted something that belonged to me. And when I met this elder gentleman, he's also Jamaican, and he was an accountant at the time, and he said, you know what, you should get an LLC. And so in 2002, I got a sole proprietorship. Into 2004, I got an LLC. So literally, make the company's way over 20 years old if you consider that 2002 date that my legal team is always struggling with right now. But you know, I celebrated 2004 date when I became an LLC, creating an actual major organization where I can sell shares and actually go into that, even though I have not done those things. The foundation of your entrepreneurial business is very, very important. So I decided to create a publishing company first to publish my own books, because I got a great opportunity to work at Random House in Kensington. And of course, I was at a Harlem Book Fair as this kid with huge ponytails. At the time, I had braids. And somebody came up to me and said, you know, how would you like to be an executive editor, you know, at Kensington, at a subsidiary for Kensington? And I was like, I don't know what that is, but okay. And they told me they were going to pay me money, but I didn't care. I mean, I didn't know the value of money or my value. And at that time I was learning, so they didn't pay me much of anything. But I learned later on that it's not what you get paid, it's the title. So you later on get paid commensurate with the title that you have. So don't chase the money, chase the title and the opportunity and the mentorship. So that was one of the first big lessons that I learned. And I learned everything from the ground up. They gave me board access. I was able to learn what was going on, even though these are fiction publishing companies. You know, I was in my 20s, so I didn't really know much of anything, but it was amazing to understand and see the nuances. I was given the card and the person that was getting the contract. So a lot of the, you know, the one-hit wonder jailhouse books that were coming out in the 90s, you know, and early 2000s, I was getting those contracts, you know, and giving these authors with a story opportunities to be published. And I did not even realize the amazing access that I had at that time. I mean, I was meeting the Zanes, and as an author publishing myself at that time, you know, fiction writing that I wrote under a pseudonym, so don't look it up because you won't find it, because they're salacious. You know, so I was like on book signing with book clubs with Zane and Leslie Banks that wrote the Millennium, the Black Vampire series that I think so many people are ripping off. She died you know, a few years ago, and I think that, you know, she's not getting the proper credit for her books, you know, and meeting, you know, many like newspaper journalists and reporters, and just being in that space, you know, where I didn't even understand the true access that I was being given. So that's my start, only because I followed my dreams by doing what I loved the most, which was reading and writing and poetry, and turned that into a business that I never got tired of and kept doing despite the ups and downs, not jumping ship to go to what looked like the next best deal or the next lucrative thing. You know, if you're doing something that's authentically you and you're following your heart and your dreams, you will keep doing your why.
Right.
And that's
Right.
what led me here.
I love that. I love that. And so I put the link for Universal Right Publications, and I'll repost it for those that are just joined us, and welcome in. But on the homepage for UWP, your tagline, before you can scroll anywhere, it says, "We will tell our own story." So how do you use that as your North Star, especially as you are kind of building out this relationship with Sage, which many of us from academia are extremely familiar with? How did the partnership with Sage come about? And then how are you ensuring that we still get to tell our own story, even through a global player like Sage?
Wow, now that's a loaded question. So, so we will tell our own story. That to me is the very foundation of who we are. And again, because I'm an immigrant from Jamaica and I came here in the 90s, a lot of the historical experiences that people who were born and raised in this country, a lot of it was lost on me. And I learned a lot of things later on as I went through my academic experiences and as I grew as a scholar. So, for instance, I had never heard of an HBCU before until I came to the Washington, D.C. area. And I came here, right after I finished my master's program in 2011. In 2011, I finished my master's program at USF in Tampa, Florida. And I came here and I started working at the US Department of Education. I was lucky to have gotten this amazing federal job that I recently stepped away from in February after 13 years. And so I met my brother and friend at that time, Dr. Chaz Gibson, who is on the call. And he was an intern at that time, and he was doing his master's at Howard University. And we were just kind of talking, and he was like, come, there's these events. And so I went with him to Howard University, the School of Communications at that time. And Dr. Barbara Haynes was like, you should apply. And I said, well, I kind of want to, but my son was actually only like 3 years old at the time. No, actually, he was born in 2012. So by the time we were having that conversation, he was 3. And I wasn't ready. And I was like, I've always known that I was going to get my PhD, but I didn't think I was ready. And she said, you should apply. And so I did, like right on the spot. Little did I know that I was applying to a huge legacy. And I did not know how difficult it is to get into Howard University, or the rejection rates, or that this was one of the original Black HBCUs. I did not know any of that until I became, a Bison. And so I thank Dr. Chaz Gibson for lending that information to me and pulling me into the fold, because it changed my life. Once I got there, I was taking a class where I learned about Dr. Molefi Asante. Never heard of him. I don't know if everyone here knows who Dr. Molefi Asante is. He is the founder of Afrocentricity, the father of Afrocentricity, which is a paradigm for centering or not starring, if you will. Of course, he was a part of the civil rights movement, and he is now in his 80s, and he has accomplished great things just along the same line. And of course, he's on my board as well, my executive advisory board, along with Malana Karenga, who is the founder of Kwanzaa, along with, of course, some other prolific scholars that have, one of them is on here, Dr. Anderson, as well as Dr. Britt Carr, who has recently joined my executive advisory board, and quite a few others. And so I learned about him then, and I was like, wait a minute, this man is prolific. Every time I go on the internet, I can Google forever, and he's everywhere. And I thought, no, I don't want to write on what I can find on the internet. I really want to talk to this man. So I tried reaching him and I couldn't, but eventually I picked up the phone. I said, he's a professor. Professors, they got to have office hours, right? They've got to have office hours. So I picked up the phone and I called, and he was just as gracious and welcoming and warm. And he said, come on by. So I'm in Washington, D.C. I got in my car and I drove 2+ hours to Temple University, where I met with Dr. Molefi Asante. And he said, and I, just randomly after I did my interview and everything for class, he said, what does a little girl like you have to do with publishing? Like, what do you know about publishing? And I was really stumped by the question, because it didn't occur to me that that was really a big deal, right? It was just something that I was doing because I loved it and I had a passion for it. And he said, well, I've been waiting for you my whole life, and there's work for you to do. And this work requires you to start publishing academics, because that's where you're going to make the greatest impact. And that's where we have to do. And so in 2016, my publishing company transitioned to focus only on academic publishing. So we will tell our own story is central to who I am, because learning about HBCUs, learning the legacy of not just HBCUs in this country, but also, Black sororities, the impact of, Black politics, the impact of so many people through the civil rights movement, through through the Harlem Renaissance, through the Black Arts Movement, learning all of that became an eye-opening experience for me. And I found that the concept of Afrocentricity centered me. So for the first time in my life, I understood who I was as a Black person from the diaspora in the Americas. And Afrocentricity is not something that's partial to you being a Black person, right? It goes along with the same concept of being an ally and a co-conspirator. Afrocentricity means that if you believe that I have the right in the most simplest way to life, liberty, and happiness, then I have that right to my authentic self too, and you have your right to your authentic self. It's not about hating one people or one group over another. So anybody can be Afrocentric if you believe in the rights and liberty of humanity. And so for me, that meant everything because I began centering who I was from the history of Africa. I became Black centered. I became African centered. I started to understand that Africa had 7 dynasties prior to colonization, and that is not where we are, who we are. As a matter of fact, everything that Plato and Socrates and Aristotle learned, they went to Africa to find out about it, even down to a poem that I wrote about my hair. Don't call my hair dreadlocks, because just because that's something that's been done historically does not mean that's the right way to do it. Black people have been called nigger, niggers, all these other names too. When we know better, we do better. So even down to that, that became my center. And I realized that we have to tell our own story. We have to tell our own story. And I am grateful to it was a blind team that we used, and we sent out a few names. Gianni, she left the call, but she's my executive advisor at Sage, the liaison to my access to Sage. And, she was like, okay, we need to come up with your model and your mission. And that was chosen by 90% of the people who did the test to come up with that mission of we will tell our own story. And by goodness, it resonates so strongly in everything that we do. I know that the second part of that was about Sage. Did you want me to just kind of roll into that?
Yes, and the Little Black Book series, did I get the title right?
Oh, yes, but we're going to talk
Okay.
about that a little bit later.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, because it's so funny because when I saw Dr. Muhammad come on, I thought he was Dr. Kamara Muhammad, who is the chair of the African Studies Department at Howard University. And he is actually publishing a book with us called Transcendental Africanity and Afrophobia. And there's a call for papers for that. So if you're interested in that, that's also on the website. Please, when you log on to the website, sign up for our newsletters, because I personally write every single newsletter that we send out. And I usually write it, of course, not from a Eurocentric perspective, even though it will be scholarly. I want to be authentically myself in everything that I do. And so you will hear the natural enthusiasm, tone, and virtue of everything that I believe in and speak about in the newsletters. But I'm usually talking from a Black perspective about everything that we talk about in the newsletter, just giving you insight about things that I'm learning as I go along. So please, please, please sign up for the newsletter. And so let me jump into the relationship with Sage. And here again is the incredible information about how the connection between Dr. Asante in 2015, when I started as a graduate student at Howard University, and come full circle. So Dr. Molefiketi Asante is the founder of the Journal of Black Studies. And we see Dr. Ronaldo Anderson is also associate editor now of Journal of Black Studies. Dr. Asante just stepped down as the editor. So the Journal of Black Studies just celebrated 50 years old. 50 years. One of the most lucrative, one of the most influential, one of the most successful journals in the world today. When Dr. Asante was 28 years old, he and another gentleman wanted to find a Black Studies journal, and he was at UCLA, and he went to Sage. Okay, the founder of Sage is a woman. Her name is Sarah Miller McCoon. And let me see if I can pull her. She has this. Sarah Miller McCoon, Sage. So you went to her. She was 24 years old at the time. Talk about starting a company as an entrepreneur and blowing it up, right? 24 years old, a young Jewish girl. This was when white people and everybody in the 50s and 60s are still burning bras, right? White women are still fighting for rights. And can you imagine the uproar when this Black man came to this young white woman saying, I want to publish a journal of Black studies? Can you imagine all of her mentors and references that was telling her, don't do it? And she was an activist at that time, and she said, no, she's going to do it. And she published the Journal of Black Studies, which is today, of course, still one of the most successful journals. Sage is the 4th publisher of journals in the world. So they're the 4th global publisher in the world. And so when she did that, he met her. Fast forward years later, when he met me, he gave me the opportunity to publish his books. And just for the record, Dr. Asante just celebrated publishing his 100th books, and Universal Right Publications published 10 of those books. So I am really excited and proud and honored to be a part of his legacy. Fast forward now, a couple of years ago, when Black Lives Matter was, going crazy, George Floyd was murdered, and you see all the little white companies and everybody was putting their little black dots. We stand with Black businesses and Black people. Do you all remember that? Does everybody remember all the companies that were putting the little black dots that they were standing with Black people? Well, Sage, a lot of them just put their money where their mouth, they didn't put their money where their mouth is, right? A lot of them just kind of talked, right? And so that's where we have to distinguish the difference between allies and co-conspirators. Okay, because an ally, they will understand and they will support you and they'll feel for you and they'll go, oh, I'm so sorry, this is happening to you. And they may even hold your hand. A co-conspirator is someone who will put their money where their mouth is. A co-conspirator is usually not a Black person or a Black company, but they believe that something is the right thing to do and they will put their lives on the line for it. And that's what Sage has become to me, a co-conspirator. When everything was happening during the Black Lives Matter movement, they went to, of course, Dr. Asante and said, we can't do anything. We're a publisher. How do we help? We want to do more than putting a black dot, up saying that we support Black scholars. So what they did was, so Dr. Asante told them about the top 4 Black publishing companies in the world, right? Black Classic Press, Paul Coates, founded in 1978, right? Africa World Press by Kassoon is 38 years old, and Third World Press by Akim Matabuti, which was founded in 1968. And there's another one, they only publish Black children's book. They're in New Jersey, it's a husband and wife team. That's 4, the Legends of Black Publishing, over 150 years of experience in one. These are the people that was there with the Johnsons when you're talking about Ebony Magazine, when you're talking about Essence Magazine. These are the original Black scholars that were making a way through civil rights and the Harlem Renaissance, making sure that something gets done, right? So these are the legends in Black publishing. And Dr. Asante added one more name, a 5th one, mine. So unbeknownst to me, of course, Sage was doing their due diligence and they went around and they talked to everybody, but I did not find this out until later on after the press release went out that Sage chose me. And they chose me for various reasons. One, I'm a young scholar and an academic who understand the nuances of being, publishing social sciences, right? Number 2 is the company is young. So you can't turn around the Titanic, right? So when the company's been that long, it's grounded in its mission and its policies, in the way it does business. So it's really hard to kind of shift that mission. And number 3 is, which was the one that they put in the press release, both Sarah, the founder of Sage, and the CEO of Le Simku, when they were giving their quote, this was my favorite, was that I reminded them of Sarah. Sarah, who started our company with $500, I started UWP with $600, to get it all together. And Sarah is a woman and I'm a woman. And when I met her in person a couple of years ago, she said she put her hand on my hand because she's very, very distant. She doesn't talk to everybody. She doesn't touch everybody. And it took time for me to earn her trust and her love. And when she touched my hand and she said, baby, I've been waiting for you since the 70s. It just resonated everything that Dr. Asante said when I first met him in 2015. And so hence the relationship between being a scholar, again, going to school because of my passion, led me to Dr. Asante, which led me to Sage, which put me in the right moment. So preparation equals opportunity equals success. And so that's where the connection connected.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So the chat is pretty active. Let's make sure to save the chat before we leave. We have about 15 more minutes. I would love to open it up for questions if there are any. I know Dr. Mons, you had dropped a question in. The first question she asked was, how could people get involved with the work that you are doing from a research perspective? So I put the call for papers, but definitely Dr. Sekai, if you want to unpack it a bit more about what those opportunities might look like.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for that, because I really didn't get into like telling you more about the importance of a Black publisher and why this is such a unique thing. Universal Right Publication is the only Black-owned, woman-owned social science doctor-owned publishing company in the world today. So that is breaking barriers beyond barriers beyond barriers. We do not do pay for play. We do not do open access. We do not do any of these things. As a matter of fact, my next newsletter will be talking about the importance of publishing journal articles and the difference between book publishing and journal articles, and why you should not put your original research in your journal articles. But that's coming on my newsletter, so make sure you sign up for that. When you publish a book, in order for you to become the expert in the field as a scholar, you have to have three things. You need to be indexed, cited, and referenced. Indexed, cited, and referenced. You cannot become the expert in your field as an academic or social scientist unless you have those three things. But in order for you to have those three things, you have to get published first. But Black scholars are not being published, so we're not becoming the experts in the field, which is why we turn around and we see white scholars are the expert in theories like critical race theory and other methodologies that we created to understand our lived experiences, because they're getting published. And because they're getting published, they're also getting the grants, they're also getting the tenure, and they're also getting the jobs, which then continue to perpetuate the marginalization of Black people and Black scholarship, and also perpetuate the wrong narratives about Black history in general. So this is why Universal Right Publications' mission is so important to, one, publish Black scholars, not just because you're Black, but you have to take, all skin folk and kin folk. So you can't just be Black. You have to be African-centered and coming from an African-centered perspective. That's number one. Number two, you cannot be lukewarm in your Blackness. So totally unapologetic in what you write, because the only thing you're getting from Universal Right Publications that you can't get from a white publishing company right now is that you can be uncentered and uncensored and unapologetic. You don't have to worry about your research being watered down. You don't have to tiptoe around the history of Black people, and you can authentically claim what is rightfully ours historically. Okay, so that's the important thing. The other important thing goes to that question. You have to get involved by becoming readers, reviewers, book reviewers, sitting on boards, and not just Black bookstore boards. You need to go to the white people, because the doors are open right now. The opportunity is right now. You need to create that space, pull up a chair, make a table, swipe off all their tables, and say, we're here. Because one of the things when Universal Right Publications was when the press release with the Sage partnership just went out, and we thought, And the whole thing started happening with Black Lives Matter. And we thought, oh my goodness, professors are going to run and hide because they need their tenure, and schools are, taking Black books off and they're banning Black books. What are we going to do? Because Black scholars are such a small market share when you do your SWOT analysis. And you know what I said? I said, we keep going. You don't jump ship when things get hard. We're not a transactional, process, even though we do need money to survive, and we can't keep doing what we're doing if we don't have sales and in order to survive. However, you're not going to jump ship when things get hard. It's just like any relationship that's worth having, right? You fight for it. And I tell you, I am floored and surprised every single day that when I go to these conferences, the amount of book ideas, the people are unapologetic, people are fighting back, people are pushing back. Just when they thought that nobody, Black scholars are going to run and hide, we're coming out in droves. So you want to help? Buy those banned books. Audre Lorde is banned. Bell Hooks is banned. Maya Angelou is banned. Come on, people. Buy banned books. Use Black books in your classrooms, in your research, in your talking points. If you're an entrepreneur and you're just giving away a gift, give away UWP books. If you're going to spend your money there. Give books as gifts. Buy books, use them in your classroom, cite Black women, cite Black scholars, become readers, become reviewers, and I am open to all of that as well. So send me an email and we can keep talking about it.
Yes, I love it. I'm trying to contain my excitement. Dr. Muhammad, you had a question. You want to come off mute and post it, or you want me to read it?
Yeah, I can ask the question.
Okay.
I was just kind of briefly skimming through the website while you were talking, and I wanted to just kind of pick your brain on the opportunities for like business and entrepreneurship research with UWP. I don't really see it like directly mentioned on the site or nothing like that, but I was just going to kind of hear your perspective.
Okay, no, thank you for that question. So there is not a direct entrepreneurship component of UWP, except that UWP is an entrepreneurship corporation, right? But we do collaborate and work with you in the ways that I'm working with like Dr. LaTanya White. Like I am still a scholar. So Dr. LaTanya White and I, we met because we were co-writing an article to present at a panel, where her dynastic wealth theory meets my linguistic imperialism and blends with entrepreneurship. So we can collaborate, we can find unique, creative way to collaborate. And also that's another great thing about UWP Press is because it's not strict across discipline. So anything that you could write and publish academically, and you're a social scientist, add in those components that are necessary for academic publishing, that's something that we're looking for as well. So we can talk offline about how, just kind of brainstorm how we can do that. I'm open to that as well.
Thank you for that. Dr. Mons, Kathleen Mons down at Albany State in Georgia, actually is a part of kind of like the planning team for this. And as we were working together back over the summer, it was Dr. Mons' idea to really find a way for us to amplify Black academic entrepreneurship scholarship. And so that's where really pulling Dr. Sekai into like our universe, Dr. Muhammad, and finding ways to create research opportunities in partnership with a publisher that, again, where we don't have to be apologetic, and we, as a matter of fact, cannot be lukewarm, right, in our Blackness. So I know it's been pretty quiet for one of my friends in the chat, but she knows I'm talking to her about this. So are there any other questions? I'd love for Dr. Sekai to have kind of the last couple of words. Dr. Mons, did you want to unmute and ask your question about this last one that you put in the chat?
I can. I apologize. I'm in the car. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you sound great.
Thank you, Dr. Sekai. Wow, I am so impressed. And thank you for gracing us with your presence. And my question really is, what is your succession plan? All too often, we have these amazing leaders who are doing amazing work, and then when we pivot, our efforts are gone unnoticed. And so what are your thoughts on succession planning?
Wow, that is a really powerful question. So thank you so much, Dr. Mons, for that. Okay, for as far as succession planning, and you're right, one of the reasons that we see a lot of great entrepreneurship ventures fail is because we do not plan, right? Or we have, and let's talk about money, right? We don't have the money, and we take out business loans and we go bankrupt. So that's usually a big problem in just about everything that we do, and it's also something that I think about. Now, everybody here know what Shark Tank is. Yeah, we know what Shark Tank is. Well, the best way that I explain my relationship with Sage Publishing is that I didn't go to Shark Tank, but it's like I went to Shark Tank, I got the sharks, and I gave up no equity in my company. Can I say that again? I went to Shark Tank, I got the sharks, and I gave up no equity in my company. So if you know Shark Tank, then you know that a lot of people are giving up 5, 10, 15%. So then you have decision-making rights coming in from an outside entity into your company. Universal Right Publications is the complete opposite of that. I am the sole decision maker. I bring in editors and executive advisors and team members who are like-minded and mission-driven in the same way that I am, to guide me in things that I don't know, because I'm still an emerging scholar. I graduated in 2020 with my PhD. So because of that, I still need as much mentorship and guidance as possible. So I go to the established sources. So to your point, Dr. Mons, what Sage has recently done is, and I respect and honor them so much, because Sarah, as she is getting older, she decided to do one of the things that a lot of companies have not done. Instead of selling her shares and becoming all of this, like putting it on the market, she put the company in a trust. So the first thing I'm doing is putting Universal Right Publications in a trust. Therefore, it cannot be sold, the mission cannot be changed, and I want it to remain authentically what it was created to do. That's the first succession planning that I do. The second thing you do is make sure that you get money, right? So that's one of the things that I am working on right now. Lucky for me, I have an amazing attorney who used to work at the patent office, and he is on my board as my legal advisor. However, my company is a New York State corporation, so it is branded in New York State, and that's where it lives. So I recently got a whole team of attorneys in New York who are working with me pro bono, because you see, you got to find ways to collaborate and find those networks and stuff like that. Find ways to build your money and your wealth without spending. And I know Dr. White can give us more on that, on the dynastic wealth tip, okay? Because that's her whole dissertation and her research, so she can tell you. So one of the things is to get money. Luckily for me, the distribution, the marketing, the worldwide access that I get is through my partnership with Sage. So because I have this partnership with Sage, which is going to be what, 10, 15, 20, 30 years into the future, right? Is unlimited, but the financial grant that they gave me in order to make sure that I am publishing the scholars that I think will have an impact academically, that financial grant is finite. So what I do, and I work with Gianni, my executive advisor, who has 30 years marketing experience in the industry. She was a world award-winning, publisher for one of the journal magazines that Sage published. Just incredible. One of the things that we work on, and we're working on as we move forward, because one of the things that neither Sage nor I anticipated was how fast UWP would grow the minute we had this opportunity. We have grown so fast that we do not have enough manpower, time, resources to accommodate all of the opportunities that are coming at us. So we create our SWOT analysis, we create a business plan, and we go through that business plan and make sure that we can see our growth and we can see where our shortcomings are and where we need to develop more. I became a member of HSBC. HSBC is a worldwide bank. Everyone knows that bank. I was accepted in one of their female entrepreneurship program called ROAR. And then I was featured as one of their program. And in that program, we get access to angel investors. So I have an upcoming pitch that I am preparing for now with about 12 or 13 angel investors to pitch to. And so I have to refine everything that's happening with UWP because now we have a proof of concept that as far outweighed anything that those 4 legends and Black publishers have ever achieved or anything that anybody has ever expected. So I am actually meeting with these 4 Black publishers because they're trying to understand the template and also bringing me into the fold, which is also part of the transition plan that needs to happen. Because one of the things that we do as Black people, and I don't even fault us all the way because we've been so hungry and starved in so many ways that the minute we get something, we hold on to it and we are afraid to share. So that's part of the problem. But what we need to do is to realize that delegation and sharing actually makes us stronger. It doesn't weaken us. So them bringing me into the fold and transitioning, saying, hey, we're the old guards, she is up and coming. That's a big part of transition planning. And also a big part of transition planning for me is also to bridge the gap between emerging scholars and senior scholars and how we work together. Because a lot of times too, as experts in our field, we talk to each other, but the people who are going to be implementing it or need the information, they're not getting it. So we need to find ways to bridge that gap so we're talking to each other and talking to the people who are out there who may not be doctors or entrepreneurs, but they're activists and movement makers, and they're passionate about Black people and scholarship and making those trends. So those are some of the parts of the transition planning that I can share with you right now that I'm working on.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It's never enough time. So Dr. Sekai and I actually are probably 20 minutes away from each other. We talked about we should have just met in person and did this, but listen, you all can probably tell by now that this is just not enough time. So I dropped Dr. Sekai's contact information, LinkedIn, websites, all in the chat. If you're on a laptop, you can save the chat. I know it's usually hard to save the chat from a mobile device, but we'll make sure that you get the recording. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but Dr. Sekai, maybe have 5 more minutes to really kind of wrap us up, close us out with some parting words or some opportunities that you're looking for us to help you amplify.
Thank you so much. But before, does anyone have any questions at all?
Yeah.
Any more questions that I can answer?
Dr. Sekai, and hello, Dr. White. How are you? Dr. Sekai, this is Chaz Gibson. Sorry, I'm not on camera. I'm actually in my car. I had a flat tire, so I'm going to get my tire fixed, but I wanted to definitely log on and support. And as usual, you never surprise me. This was absolutely amazing. Everything you do is amazing. And I just continue to pray that the God will continue to crown everything within this ministry with nothing but success. So I love you. You say how the time with me changed my life, but a lot of the things you've done helped change my life. So I'm Dr. Gibson, but we went through the struggle together. For those who don't know, I teach at Morehouse as well, but we've been through that struggle together. We've worked closely together, and I am just completely honored for the connection that I have with Dr. Sekai. I learned so much, and everything that you just got from her today is just when you connect with her, it's just 10 times more than that. So thank you.
Thank you. I love you too. And he's a Morehouse man as well. He graduated from Morehouse as well. Thank you so much for that. As far as a wrap up, I mean, I really just appreciate you all joining us. I see also another good friend of mine, Colonel Light Terry, also just joined. the call. So thank you so much for always being there for me. She's also another very good friend. And so as far as just supporting, just support wherever you can support. Find a colleague, lift as you climb, support each other. There is enough in the world for everyone, right? And we can't do everything or hoard everything. So the best thing to do is to share, delegate, and pass information on. I said that Sage is the bravest people I know because they are a gatekeeper, but they have literally opened the door and let the floodgates open and give me access to every VP, every country that they're in. And I've been traveling the world on their dime, on their, they're just giving me every information. And because of that information they're giving me, I'm also giving it back to you. I'm giving it back to my colleagues and my friends and those I network with, because we need to understand the significance of writing. And I'm going to say two last things that is really important that for us to just kind of leave with, especially those of us who publish, right? We talk about books. If anybody ever tell you that books are going out of style, know that they are lying. That's number one. Know they're lying. Books will never go out of style. I mean, how do we get information from the 16, 14, 1700s? How do we get it? Somebody published a book. White people own the Library of Congress that owns the books of the world. Tell me if white people are going to let they go of their money and let you get rid of their books. It's never going to happen. So when people start telling you that hardcover books are going away, just know it's a lie. Or even printed books. No, it's a lie. Number two, know that ebooks is a first world problem. Ebooks is a first world issue. This is not from the global south, and we're not saying third world, okay? The global south. So first world is the West, the global south is Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean. Okay, the global south cannot afford ebooks. If you've ever been to Africa, which I've been to, and I'm going back to do my Fulbright in Nigeria, and I'm also going to Ghana again, also in August with UWP. I'm taking my company there because I consider UWP a borderless publisher, like Doctors Without Borders. Okay, those countries, their Wi-Fi is slow. They can't download a huge ebook. They cannot. Children are still walking miles to go to school. In Africa, the University of Ghana and the University of Lagos, they're looking for printed books. When you can't get food, a roof over your head, food on your table, roof over your head, clothes on your back, you can get a book. Somebody can lend you a book. You can go to a library and get a book. You can have something tangible. You can turn those pages and you don't need nothing but your eyesight. Books are not going out of style. Ebooks is a first world issue where everybody's telling professors and teachers, oh, make sure it's electronic, make sure it's electronic. Remember that that's a way of marginalizing poor and Black people as well. Keep that in mind. And don't let me get started on AI, but that's going to be another conversation because that also marginalizes Black people by perpetuating the same old narrative, because AI is pulling from what's already in the world. And if what's already in the world were published by white people and white people are the one that's telling the lies and not the right narrative, then guess what? AI is going to be doing the same. Do your research. That's all I can say. I'm sorry, I'm going to get off it.
I love it. I feel like you just took me to First Baptist. Thank you so much, Dr. Sekai. Ladies and gentlemen, please find your way to connect with her. LinkedIn, by email, any other resources on the UWP website. We'll also make sure that you have access to the recording. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We're a little bit over schedule, but I like to hope that it was worth the time. I appreciate y'all. Any last comments before we kind of wrap up? All right, so you got some items in the chat, but thank you everyone, especially I know we're between Zoom meetings, we're in the car, we're in transition, so we appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye,
all so
everybody.
much for coming. Thank you. I
Thanks. Have a good
appreciate
one.
it.
This was really good. Thank you, Dr. Sakai.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
I'll stop the recording. All right.